Greetings, fellow slayers and newcomers alike. Today, we are creating the ultimate Emily Kaldwin build in Baldur's Gate 3. This is essentially a variation of the Corvo Attano build linked below and can be used to solo the game or in a party. Bonus points if you duo the game as Corvo and Emily. As with Corvo, we will gain most of Emily's abilities, and there are some variations to this build. For instance, you could dip into Cleric for things like Invoke Duplicity and Command, but we will be sticking with a solid split of Rogue and Warlock with a dash of Action Surge to top it off. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and for access to written versions of Emily and Corvo, along with my full catalog of builds, consider visiting the Patreon where these lovely folk have gathered round. Thank you all for your support. You all are absolute legends, and you fill me with righteous ambition. Welcome to Purge Evil. Thank you for stopping by. Let's get into it. Character creation in level 1. Quick note, if you want extra attack early, just take your 5 Warlock levels first before anything. The build path I'm going to describe will see us getting extra attack at level 8 in favor of flavor and roleplay. Some important items for this build are the Hag's Hair for a +1 bonus to Charisma, arrows of many targets to simulate Emily's domino ability a little bit, that was alliteration, and stock up on Elixirs of Viciousness for a higher chance to crit. To begin, Emily is a human, but you could take Wood Elf for extra stealth proficiency and movement speed. I chose Noble for her background, but if you want more stealth, take Urchin. Her starting class will be Rogue, granting us sneak attack and extra skills to buff. I chose Acrobatics, Stealth twice, Investigation, Insight, and Perception twice. For stats, set Strength at 8, Dex at 14, Constitution at 16, Intelligence at 8, Wisdom at 10, and Charisma at 17. Level 2. At Rogue 2, we gain our bonus action Hide, Dash, and Disengage. Level 3. Moving on to Rogue 3, we select our subclass, and any of the 3 can work. Thief is likely the best option for the extra bonus action, but I chose Arcane Trickster mainly for shield later on, and 3 extra level 1 spell slots, as they can also be used for spells we gain from Warlock levels as well. The upgraded Mage Hand can be flavored as a Gimped Farreach. If you're looking for an explanation of the Assassin subclass, check out the Corvo Attano build linked below. For cantrips, take Minor Illusion for Doppelganger, and this can be used to distract enemies, allowing you to hide or reposition. Second cantrip is obviously Friends, and for spells, take Sleep and Charm Person. Sleep is rather useful considering it doesn't force a saving throw, which is good for us since we have low intelligence, and being that this is part of the Rogue class, these spells would use intelligence. Charm Person is replaced by Friends in conversation, but there are times it can be used in combat to prevent an enemy from attacking you. For the expanded spell, take Long Strider for extra movement speed and keep it buffed at all times. Level 4. At level 4, Emily has proven herself to the outsider, and we now multi-class into Warlock. For our subclass, we take Archfey for Fey Presence to flavor as Mesmerize, and we'll also have more spells to use as Mesmerize later on. Fey Presence is quite powerful, so make good use of it. For cantrips, of course, we take the goated Eldritch Blast, which can be flavored multiple different ways, and I like to take Blade Ward as well, just in case I know I'm going to take physical damage. I can buff with this and become resistant. For spells, we take Arms of Hadar and Hex. Arms of Hadar is useful not only for damage, but for escaping a group of enemies, as it causes them to not be able to make opportunity attacks. Hex adds necrotic damage to your attacks against a target and can be recast after the target is killed, so long as you maintain concentration. Quick note, around this time is when you should be acquiring the Hag's Hair if you intend to do so during your playthrough. Level 5. At level 5 Warlock 2, we gain 2 Eldritch Invocations, taking Agonizing Blast for more power, and Devil's Sight not only for dark vision, but because we're going to abuse darkness. For the spell, I took a temporary Armor of Agathis for retaliation damage should I take a melee hit. Level 6. Moving on to Warlock 3, our Warlock spell slots are now level 2 and we have access to new spells. We also, of course, gain our Pact Boon, which will be Pact of the Blade. So now all of our attacks with our main hand weapon will scale with Charisma rather than Dex or Strength. If you're dual wielding, the offhand weapon will still scale with dex, so keep that in mind, and make sure to keep your weapon bound at all times. For the spell, quickly take darkness. This can be used both offensively and defensively. Just note that it takes up your concentration. It should always be stated that the entire game can be completed within a cloud of darkness with relative ease. For the replacement spell, replace Hex or Armor of Agathis for Mirror Image, flavored as a type of doppelganger. This doesn't require concentration and essentially guarantees you won't take damage for the next 3 attacks. Level 7. At level 7 Warlock 4, we have our first feat being Ability Improvement to cap our Charisma at 20. For the cantrip, take Poison Spray, and for the spell, take Misty Step, obviously. Level 8. We now land on Warlock 5, finally unlocking extra attack and gaining level 3 Warlock spells. Our Eldritch Invocation will be Repelling Blast, which can potentially be flavored as Far Reach. For the spell, take Hypnotic Pattern flavored as a stronger version of Mesmerize. This will hypnotize all creatures in a 9-meter radius, preventing them from moving or taking actions, and making this one of the most busted control spells in the entire game. It only lasts for 2 turns, but the utility of incapacitating an entire group of enemies cannot be ignored. Note that damage, shoving, and helping will remove the hypnosis from that creature. Level 9. Now at level 9, we move back over to Rogue to gain our second and final feat, which will be Alert. This simply gives us a +5 bonus to initiative and makes it so we can never be surprised, which can be life-saving. We also gain another level 1 spell slot, and for the spell, we take Disguise Self. We're able to use the replacement spell here to get another spell from the expanded list, so go ahead and replace Charm Person or Sleep with Shield, and only use this when absolutely necessary. Level 10. Moving on to level 10, we dip back into Warlock for one more level, unlocking another subclass feature being Misty Escape. When Emily gets hit, she shadow walks to turn invisible and can then use Far Reach or Blink on her next turn to escape or close the distance. For the spell, I took Hold Person, as this guarantees melee range attacks to be crits, and we can hold up to 2 creatures, being that we have level 3 spell slots. Possibly flavor this as another form of Mesmerize. Level 11 and 12. At level 11, we multi-class into Fighter. I recommend a respec at this point to make Fighter your first level for Constitution proficiency. This grants us a small self-heal and second wind, and for the fighting style you can take Archery, Dueling, or 2-weapon fighting depending on your playstyle. I myself chose Dueling. For the final level of the build, take Fighter once again for Action Surge, doubling your output on a turn once per short rest. Gear. Okay, gear is similar to Corvo Attano with a slightly altered selection, and locations of all gear can easily be found on my Patreon or the wiki. I'm not going to include it for alignment reasons, but the rare Dark Justiciar armor is perfect with this build, so do with that information what you will. Okay, so for Act 1 heads, we have the Shadow of Menzo Berenzin, the Shade Spell Circlet, and the Diadem of Arcane Synergy. Chest, we have Spider Silk Armor and the Graceful Cloth. Gloves, we have Fleet Fingers, Gloves of Dexterity, Gloves of Missile Snaring, and the Daredevil Gloves. Boots are, of course, the Disintegrating Nightwalkers. Amulets are Amulet of Misty Step, Amulet of Branding, and Uncovered Mysteries. Rings are Strange Conduit Ring and Ring of Arcane Synergy. Melee weapons are Knife of the Undermountain King, the Baneful, and Sword of Screams. Ranged weapons are any hand crossbows, try to get a +2, and the Firestoker. For Act 2 heads, we have the Covert Cowl. Cloak is the Cloak of Cunning Broom. Chest is the Shade Clinger Armor and the Penumbral Armor. Gloves are the Gloves of the Duelist. Gloves of the Balanced Hands, if you're using 2 weapons. And the Arachneer Bracers. No boots. Amulets are the Surgeon's Subjugation Amulet and the Spellcrux Amulet. Rings are the Shadow Cloaked Ring, the Shifting Corpus Ring, and Ring of Free Action. Melee weapons are Sword of Lifestealing and Render of Mind and Body. I particularly like this one. Ranged weapons are the Near Misser and, of course, the Hellfire Hand Crossbow. Now for Act 3 heads, we have Birthright and Saravok's Horned Helmet. Cloaks are Shade Slayer Cloak and Nymph Cloak. Chest piece is Elegant Studded Leather and Ballist Armor. Gloves are the Ballist Gloves and Legacy of the Masters. These don't affect your sneak, by the way. Boots are Helldusk Boots. Amulets are the Amulet of Greater Health and Spell Savant Amulet. Rings are the Ring of Blink and the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel. And finally, for melee weapons, we have the Duelist's Prerogative, which is my favorite, Crimson Mischief, and Bloodthirst. Okay, so for endgame gear, obviously there is a ton to choose from with this build, so this isn't indicative of the absolute best of what you should be wearing, but this is going to help you with critical hits. Although during the footage I forgot to pop an Elixir of Viciousness, so we would have actually hit more crits. Anyways, we are wearing the Saravox Horn Helmet, the Shadeslayer Cloak, the Ballist Armor, the Legacy of the Masters, Helldusk Boots, Amulet of Greater Health, Strange Conduit Ring, Ring of Arcane Synergy, the Duelist's Prerogative, the Near Misser, and Hellfire Hand Crossbow. If you made it to this point in the video, you are now obligated to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you thought this build was trash, you are now obligated to dislike the video and come up with something better in the comments. Both of you are now obligated to ring the bell so as to not miss out on future content. If you'd like to further support the cause and become a fellow slayer of Purge Evil, the Patreon is linked down below, where you can support for as little as $1 a month and gain access to exclusive content, including all of my builds in written format, plus way more that will never become videos. Fresh provisions in the pantry, and a new shiny sword for any slayer to be. I got a lot more to share with you all in due time, and if you're still here, I just want to say thank you for stopping by, and until next time, Purge Evil.
Yeah, crown in my palm, but I ain't put it on. Yeah, crown in my palm, but I ain't put it on. Yeah, crown in my palm, but I ain't put it on. Yeah, crown in my palm, but I ain't put it on. Yeah.